जी सर।
तो दे दिया एंट्री दिया उनको।
हाँ हाँ हाँ, दोनों गीता एस करके, एक में एक बड़ा एस है, एक में छोटा एस है।
वो भी दीजिए, आपको भी दीजिए।
अभी आ गए सर, ठीक है सर, देखिए।
उनको भी दीजिएगा।
ठीक है सर, एक मिनट सर।
Am I audible, sir? Sir, am I audible? Hello. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Hello.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, you are audible.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you.
You can do one thing.
Yes.
While speaking, the audio of the other device
Yeah,
should be muted.
yeah,
Yes.
that's all done. That's all done. There is
Yeah.
no echo happening, no, so it's done.
Yeah, that time it was happening when you say spoke twice, then it was the echoing was there.
Correct, I remember. That was the first time. That's right.
Yeah.
Now it's done. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hello. Geeta ma'am, just give me 2 minutes. I'm just
Yes.
linking with your PPT, ma'am. अभी हमको नहीं बात करना किसी से, अभी आ जाइए यहाँ से 10 मिनट बाद आइए.
Sir, can we start entry?
Radhika ma'am, you can unmute yourself, ma'am.
Okay, so can we start, Mr. Abhay?
Yes, sir. Radhika ma'am also can unmute herself. I have not heard first.
Okay. So today with us, prior to starting the session, I welcome all the participants, our resource person, the learned Geeta ma'am, and our topic is Bloom's taxonomy. But prior to we start the session, I must add that as our previous sessions were there, we had made a rule that every participant will rename themselves, will initiate writing with their school names, school's number first, thereafter writing their names. And those who would not be in this format, it will be very difficult for us to verify their attendance, whether they have participated or not, and if they participated, where they stayed in the session for 40 minutes continuously or not. So that is a big problem for all of us. And this time, the certificate may not be generated for such people. So please precise into this. The second change is there is an attendance link which will be sent at around 5 minutes or 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes when the session is about to end. And that attendance link will have a questionnaire, around 10 questionnaire, which is needed to be answered along with the attendance. So when you will move from the first to the second page, next page, those questions will come for you. So this is important for all of us, and I request everyone to be benefited with this. Anything else, Radhika ma'am, you wish to add here?
Yes, the thing is that only once again those who are very casual approach is taking through the online training period. Training this time we have put some questions. That's the most important thing, and you need to answer. And those who are getting the pass mark, then only certificate will be generated as per the COEs. You know that we are also now joining the different COEs. Online workshop, then we have noticed that few questions are giving, and if you answer it, you can say 60% and above, if we are getting the score, then only we are getting the certificates. And today I know that if you listen, you can get the full marks, because today's our expert is Miss Geeta, one of the renowned principal, apart from it, a born teacher. So we can easily benefit it, because it's very necessary, because Bloom's taxonomy is now changed. How the pyramid is changed, that she will explain to us, and it's easy for us. Wish you all the best. Welcome, Geeta ma'am. On behalf of Aryavarta Sahodaya, we all welcome you to the training session.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Radhika ma'am. It's always an honor to be connected with you. And as I've always said that dil se Patna ki, dil se Bihar ki hu. So I'm so much connected to the whole, the wonderful souls who have joined today. And congratulations, everybody, that we've chosen education as our career. And congratulations, all of us, that we are going to prepare the young Indians for the future India. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Yes, as Radhika ma'am said, Bloom's taxonomy is the backbone of the domains of learning. With your permission, Radhika ma'am, can I proceed? Or should I start with the session?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Please do it.
Okay. So thank you so much.
Well, 1 minute.
Yes.
Just at the end of the session, we'll have a question answer round. So those who are raising hands, please be patient and keep your questions for the end of the session. Thank you. Ma'am, please start.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And yes, friends, I would be happy if you can keep putting your comments in the chat, because that will help me to know whether I am in the comfortable flow and all of us are comfortable with whatever we are discussing or understanding together. So Bloom's taxonomy presented by me as I've understood it, but then believe me, Bloom's taxonomy is like a Bible, because every time you look at it, every time you look at it, you have different insights on the domains of learning, and you get different ideas as to how you can present learning inside the classroom. So moving on to the session of the day, Bloom's taxonomy. Sir, the next slide, please. Yes, Bloom's taxonomy was actually presented by a Jewish American educational psychologist by the name Benjamin Bloom. Now, Bloom's taxonomy is something which we have all heard during our B.Ed classes, and we've heard it time and again in different CBSE seminars. But then what exactly is it? And how do we use it inside our classroom is what we are going to see today. So moving on further to the next slide. What is Bloom's taxonomy? And how can we, in case if we have to say it in a sentence, what do we understand it as? So Bloom's taxonomy was actually presented or developed by Benjamin Bloom. It focuses on the mastery of learning. His ideas developed into what is known as the Bloom's taxonomy. So next slide, please. So when we say the domains of learning, or when we say learning, which are the actual connects which happens in our body? Is it just the head, or is it just the heart, or is it just the mind? So to understand it, Benjamin Bloom had actually presented 3 domains of learning. So you can see in the picture there, it's the head, hand, and heart, which has all to join together in unison to participate in the process of learning. So that's how, and when you learn, when the domains of learning, when it is cognitive domain, it means there is head involved in it. And when we allow the hand to be connected with the head, you have the psychomotor and the cognitive domain working together. And when you have your heart in it, you have the affective domain working together. So all the 3 domains of brain, when it works together, a child is able to learn, or a learner is able to connect to the aspect of learning. So moving on further. So what is exactly the 3 domains of learning, and how does Benjamin present this learning? What he has done is he has presented a hierarchy of mental, emotional, and practical skills that can help the learner prompt deeper thinking in the learners, or the learner can understand a concept in a deeper way. So there are 3 facets of learning is what he says. We have to make the child think, do, and feel about the whole process. So the thinking, learning, and the feeling has to go together if you want active learning to happen inside the classroom. So let's move on further. Yes. So what does this taxonomy contain? Before that, how many of you feel or know the full form of KSA? KSA. The full form of KSA. You can just put it in the chat, please. It's there on the screen. How many of you know the full form of KSA, and what is it actually? Why do we use this KSA in the learning aspect? I don't see any answers coming, or is my network? Maybe I can just write it here. Full form of KSA. Good. Yes, my friends, it stands for knowledge, skill, and attitude. So whenever we plan for a lesson, whenever we plan a learning inside a classroom, we cannot have just understand the definition of square or comprehend the area of a square. That cannot be the way we frame the learning objectives or the learning outcomes. We need to have all these 3 things, 3 aspects in our mind. What is the knowledge which the child is going to learn, and what is the attitude which I need to develop in a child during this knowledge impart, what is happening, and what are the skills which will help the child master the learning content. So these 3 aspects are very, very important, and knowledge, attitude, skill is also what is known as the cognitive domain, affective domain, and the psychomotor domain. The domain is actually, it's in the brain. Each child has the cognitive domain, affective domain, and the psychomotor domain when it comes to the parts of a brain. And if all the three parts of this brain is not equally participating in learning, and then you will find, you will have to, there will be many examples where we have to make the child copy something from the blackboard. And when the child copies something from the blackboard, maybe the child is not feeling towards what is being writing. The child is just writing it for the sake of writing. So there is a lot of science which goes into when we speak about the learning aspect. It's just not the knowledge impart inside the classroom, completing the syllabus inside the classroom. We need to be aware of how to transact that curriculum inside the classroom. So that's exactly what Bloom's taxonomy, we are going to discuss about it. So Bloom's taxonomy is a useful tool for teachers in the planning process. And, I always have this Bloom's taxonomy poster, especially in my room when I plan for my lesson. It helps a lot because it helps us to reflect on the fact that, am I putting enough practices inside the classroom while planning the lesson, which will help the child connect to the knowledge, attitude, and the skills of a child. So let's move on further. So now we are going to take each domains one by one so that we can understand how to frame the outcomes when it comes to the lesson plan. See, the learning outcome is the most important part of a lesson plan. Which lesson are we going to teach? Which subject are we going to teach? After we know all that, how are we actually going to plan the lesson? How should we plan the lesson in such a way that every child is able to attain the minimum percentage or minimum pass percentage, and the average result of the class is high. Average result of the class should always be beyond 80%. And we should always be able to have 100% result. So these are the two aspects which are very, very important inside a classroom when you walk into the classroom as a teacher, as a subject teacher. So, and it's not that it's tough to achieve this 100% result. 100% result is the minimum thing, most minimum thing, which every teacher must be able to attain inside a classroom. And when it comes to the average result of the class, 80% of the average result of the class must be 80%. And how do we ensure it? For that is what Bloom's taxonomy is going to help us. So what exactly goes in the cognitive domain? Cognitive domain is all about the knowledge and the mental skills. As you move up the levels, the thinking levels become more and more sophisticated. Of course, later on, we had learned about Benjamin Bloom's taxonomy. We had learned about the 6 levels. There was a slight change towards the end, which later on in 2001 was slightly modified, but moreover, the levels remain the same. So moving on further. Here, friends, you can see the different levels of Bloom's taxonomy. I remember when I had taken the class for my teachers, I had used a very simple example of cooking rice. If cooking rice is the chapter which we're going to take inside the classroom, how do we ensure that we follow the Bloom's taxonomy in it? So, if you look at those levels, you can see what are the 6 levels which are coming there: remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluation, and creation. So, in the previous first time when Bloom's taxonomy was propagated and it was presented, we had evaluation towards the last, and the creation, which was nomenclatured as synthesis, that was number 5. And creation, that means creation, that number 6 was number 5, and number 5, which is evaluation, was number 6. That's the only difference in Bloom's taxonomy. Everything else remains the same. So let us understand this, because I'm going to take a little more time in this, because this is the crux of Bloom's taxonomy. If you have understood this, it is very easy to tackle the affective and the psychomotor domain. So how do we actually understand this? To understand this, I'm trying to take a very simple example. See if we can understand it together. See, if we are supposed to teach a child how to prepare rice. So if the child has to prepare rice, the first thing is the child should be able to recognize what does this rice look like, what how exactly it is when you think about the word called rice. Is rice black in color, blue in color, white in color? You know, remembering concept is very, very important before the child actually understands what is rice. So now you will have to tell the child that, remember, you ate this, or maybe the child is shown that rice, and then we take the child to the kitchen. I'm just trying to put a very layman example, and then we will go on to specific examples. I'm giving a general example. You take the child to the kitchen, and then you say, okay, now today we are going to learn how to cook rice. You take the child is able to see the rice, and and the child remembers, yes, this is what I have seen my mother also using it, and this is what I eat every day in my lunchtime. So yes, the child has remembered. Now we are going to teach the child how to cook rice. We are not going to teach the child how to eat it. So when you're going to teach that child, what we will do is, maybe the first time, because the child doesn't know how to cook rice, what we will do is we will do the whole process in front of the child. And so we take the rice, we take the water, we take everything, and we put it on the gas, and the child is able to see everything. So once that is done, the child sees everything. Now now the child has understood how to cook rice. The child remembered rice. The child remembered, yes, I had seen my mother also cook it. And once you do it in front of the child has understood how to cook rice. Now you say, okay, now Dhruvi, you need to apply your understanding. You've seen how to make it. Now I would be happy if you can cook the rice. So the child will take the same process, take the vessel, put the water, put the rice, and then it sees it. Now there comes the next step, that is analyzing. When I cooked the rice, it was, cooked properly, but when the child did it, maybe it remained half cooked, or it is, breaking down the concept of understanding what it means to actually say that the rice is cooked. So, their child is made to compare both the results, the analyzing the cooking of rice. And then maybe all the children have cooked the rice, and then everybody compares and then has a kind of evaluation on it. Now, the 6th level is creation. So when it comes to creation, what exactly happens? Ma'am, I think that I can put butter in it and a little bit of ghee, and then the rice will be even more tasty. So the child is creating the cooking of rice into a different aspect of rice. So these are the ways the 6 levels goes inside a classroom. So how do we actually go and teach a concept inside a classroom? We need to remember, or we need to see how are the learning outcomes going to be written. So how do we write it? So suppose we've taken a chapter called photosynthesis. So how do we write the learning outcomes? We have to keep all these 6 words in mind: remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluation, and creation. So how do we write the learning outcomes? We will have to write it as, by the end of this lesson, photosynthesis, my students will be able to remember what? You can have a list of things which the child should be remembering at the end of the lesson. Understand what? The child will be able to understand the concept, the process of photosynthesis. And then what do you want the child to apply later? I would like the child to apply the concept of photosynthesis by and through an activity. And how do you try to help the child get into the analyzing fact? Maybe you make the child do an activity and examine or experiment as to what happens when there is no photosynthesis happening, or what happens when there is photosynthesis happening. So that is analyzing. So by the end of the lesson, I would be able to help the child to analyze or structure or compare. There are some verbs which are given there in the picture. You can see that these verbs will be able to help you see how you are raising the level of learning for the child. But remember, friends, unless you write down these 6 outcomes, it will be very difficult for us to understand whether we are following all the levels of learning or not. So this is the 4th point. 5th point is evaluation. Now, evaluation can be as a group activity also, you can do it. So by the end of this lesson, I would be able to evaluate the concept of photosynthesis in my class by what? You may ask them to argue on an experiment or on a video. You may ask them to justify certain things. You may ask them to go out and make a report on something. So that would be the way you will be able to achieve the evaluation level of learning. And then, of course, creation. Creation is a more independent approach where you can ask the child to develop something. And for when the child develops across the classrooms, the outcomes which would be coming would be very different. And whenever there is a creation level where the concept is, the answers are going to be different, that is called as a creation level. Evaluation, creation, there's a little difference. The only difference is creation has more of independence and evaluation has less of independence. Evaluation, you know the answers correctly, but creation, it can be anything which comes from the child. So the creation, developing, revising, formulating, proposing, establishing, everything comes under the aspect of creation. So can we move further, sir? Are we here? I just would like to take a yes from the participants. Is it okay? Is it clear? Because this is very, very important for us to understand the 6 levels of Bloom's taxonomy of cognitive domain, because this is the major thing when it comes to. Are you all comfortable with what we spoke right now? If you're comfortable, let me ask you a question. Now, suppose we are going to give a different title to a story which we have read right now. Which level of learning would that be? Which level of learning would you put that in? Because can we move to the previous slide, please? Yes. So just look at this, friends. Now let us see if we are trying to give a different title to a story which we have read in Hindi. What level of learning is that? So at the end of the lesson 3 of class 8 in Hindi, my children would be able to give a different title to the poem or to the story. So what level will that be? Please look at the level and let me know whether it is a remembering level or the understanding level or the applying level or the analyzing level or the evaluation level or the creation level. Please put your comments in the chat. Giving a different level. Yes, Satyendra ji, you are right. Anybody else? Please, let's try. Giving a different title to the story, my friends, just remember what we understood. The moment we have an independent answer where every answer can be different, it comes in the last level. That is the creation level. So yes, whenever we give a title to a poem or a story, it is the creation level. Now let me know one thing. If we are comparing the photosynthesis which happens inside a room or outside in the garden. So now we are comparing the photosynthesis process in 2 different settings of environment. What level will that be? If the child is asked to speak something on that, which level of learning would that be? Please put the things in the chat. Yes, it would be the, yeah. Thank you so much, Madhuri ma'am. It is analyzing. It is analyzing. Whenever we try to judge something, whether it is right or wrong, then it comes in which level? Whenever we are trying to judge something, which level would that be? Yes, it is evaluation level. Thank you so much, Vinayji. It is evaluation level. So see, now that we know that by the end of the lesson, my students should be able to remember what understand what, we have to write down, apply what, analyze what, evaluate what, and create what. If we are clear with this, if we write this before walking into the classroom, believe me, my friends, your lesson is half taught, because you know what you want to achieve from the child. That's number one. Second thing is, now when you prepare the question paper also, if this is what you want the child to have as learning outcomes, how do you prepare the question paper? You can prepare the question paper by using the same words, because that will help you to know which level of question are you asking. वो कहते हैं ना कभी कि पेपर बहुत difficult था, so it means that application level, which should have been by another 40% of the question paper should be just applying. वहां पर हो सकता है the analyzing and the evaluation level of the question paper was too high and the children found it difficult, and the remembering and understanding has to be there. So हो सकता है remembering understanding questions वहां पर कम रहे हो, जिसकी वजह से difficulty level of the question paper went high. So we have to understand exactly how to frame the question paper. We can know only when we know what was the learning outcome of each chapter. That is why when you go through the secondary curriculum or the senior secondary curriculum, the objectives of the subject is given very categorically placed, and for every lesson we have the outcome placed. And if we know the outcomes, it's very easy for us to know what kind of question paper must go into that. So, okay, moving on further to the next slide. Anybody, any doubts in this? If you have, please put it in the chat. In case I'm not able to cater it now, I can always do it by the end of the session. Any questions you have regarding the cognitive domain, please put it. Okay, moving on further to, you keep writing your questions. I will be trying to answer it by the end of the session. Now, moving on further to the next slide. When we frame the objectives or frame the outcomes of the lesson, we also need to see that the outcomes are mentioned in a smart way. And what does smart mean? So please, the next slide. Yeah. So the outcomes or the objectives have to be smart. So whenever you write something as understand, don't write understand square. Understand square is not a specific objective. We need to be specific in what the child should be understanding or what the child should be applying. So apply the concept or apply the formula of the area of a square, and then the child should be able to put that formula. Sorry so much. So the child should be able to put that formula in such a way that it is realistic. Now, when you ask the questions in the question paper also, the questions also should be seen as realistic. And when you try to complete the outcomes inside a classroom, remember that the outcomes have to be placed in such a way that you have a time bound to your outcomes. You can't say that by the end of the year, I'll complete chapter 3. It has to be time bound. So how exactly are we going to write the outcomes in such a way that the objectives look specific, measurable, it should be attainable, realistic, and time bound. So that is the way, that is what we should keep in mind. It should be age appropriate, it should be class appropriate, it should be subject appropriate when we try to write the learning outcomes. So I think moving on further. Moving on to the affective domain. See, we've done the cognitive domain, how exactly we tackle it inside the classroom. Now the affective domain. How many of you feel that the affective domain also should be known to a maths teacher? Because affective domain is all about feelings, joy, emotion. How does it matter whether the child is emotionally, how does it matter that the teacher should be knowing about all these things? For a maths teacher, it is just the formulas and the presentation and then making the child practice 10 times. Isn't that enough for a maths teacher? Do we actually need to know what affective domain is all about? Okay, I think you're all still thinking. Let's see whether it is really important. See, there are different ways of understanding affective domain. One is to the subject which you're teaching. How is affective domain going to help you as a maths teacher, as a science teacher, as a science concept being taught inside the classroom? This is one way of looking at it. And the other way of looking at it is also the culture of the school. You know, some schools, when you go, you'll find the children extraordinarily well behaved. And some school where you go, you'll find the teachers shouting in the classroom, saying, keep quiet and no shouting. And then, you know, tapping the desk, the scale on the table, and you to get that attention. All that has something to do with the affective domain. So when the affective domain is clearly understood inside a classroom, believe me, if you want to have a great character for the country as a whole, you want to have the country having a good culture, we need to understand this. How is exactly a culture built inside a classroom or inside a school? Okay. Can we just move? So let's just read it read it. If the cognitive domain focuses on the mind, then the affective domain is all about the heart. Learning is in the affective domain. Learning in the affective domain describes the way people react emotionally and their ability to feel others' pain or joy. It's all about the awareness and the growth in attitudes, emotion, and feelings. Please move on further. So what are the steps in affective domain? There are actually 5 levels which you can see. Whenever a concept is being taught inside a classroom, whether it is English, language, science, or maths, or it is a behavior which is seen by a child, in all ways, this affective domain levels are very, very important. What is the child receiving first? The child does not become confident in solving a puzzle directly. There are a lot of steps which are involved in the child getting that confidence. So whether it is the confidence of bullying others or whether it is a confidence of solving a puzzle. For everything, all these 4 levels are very, very important. So whenever we find, let's just go through the levels and then we'll understand it further. So the first step of any feeling or an emotion which we attach to a particular concept, it starts with receiving that concept. So be aware, or the child is willing to learn, or the child is ready to listen about what you're going to say. That is the attention, getting attention of the children. Is the class ready to receive it? How do we ensure that? You know, what we do normally is we're about to start a class and suddenly we were upset about a child doing something else, and you shout at the child, thinking that the child will be, will rectify. But what happens is the whole class is also disturbed equally. So the receiving alertness of the child class is very, very important when you start something inside a classroom. So this is the receiving. And then you will find some of them responding, some of them not responding. That again is the second level of the attention of the class. So how do we do it? Now that the child is, or you will find all the children are looking at you and they're ready to receive it, you will have to help the child respond in such a way that the child is, remember, you know that there is a weak student sitting here. So you remember, we did this in last class, and the child will say yes. And then from then, I think all of you remember. How many of you remember the definition? No, this is the definition of photosynthesis. How many of you remember the parts of speech which we did last year? So when you start like that, the child starts to respond. And in the process, when you start, appreciating, accepting, oh yes, you remember it. And then when you show that kind of a acceptance, the child starts valuing it. And then, of course, if you keep on giving the practice of it, the child will start valuing it more, because that valuing is at par with the application level of cognitive. So when the child starts valuing it, it starts organizing those thoughts. You give the practice, you keep giving the practice questions. The child is able to become better in whatever you've given, and the child, the whole concept gets into the character of a child. This is one way of looking when you're talking about the cognitive part. But when it comes to the behavior of a child, you would have found that a high scorer is always, able to respond to you better. But there are children who have been every time caught in every subject. The teacher comes and says that you're not doing well. And the math teacher also says, you're not doing well. The English teacher also says, you're not doing well. So what happens is the child has valued the concept that I am not good. And what happens? The child internalizes the fact that I am not good. And it gets into the character, and you say that, ma'am, ye 4 saal se weak hi hai. So what went wrong? The child was not given a chance to receive the fact that you can be good. And if you see the first level, that is a receiving level. So when the child is able to receive the fact, or is willing to learn, or willing to accept the fact that the child can do well, then only the child will respond to a concept which is being taught in the class. Then only the child will value that, yes, I can understand it because maths ma'am said you can understand it. I think I can understand it. And then only that internalization or assimilation fact happens. So believe me, friends, it is not only that affective domain is related to teaching inside a classroom. The character of the child is also actually is supposed to follow all these 3 steps. And this is how it becomes, you'll find a child improving suddenly because of a reinforcement by the teacher that you can do well. So when you speak inside a classroom, your words matter a lot. What is the child receiving through your words? What is the child receiving through your body language? Keeping that in mind, only the participant inside a classroom will respond to a teacher. That is why some teachers get a lot of respect, lot of loving, the whole class is happy. But sometimes some teachers do not get the kind of respect which the teacher must get. So how does it happen? These are the levels which is followed. So when maybe you can just go back and then you can enter the classroom, and you can really see that what is the receiving sentence which I should do so that the children are able to receive what I'm trying to tell them. And the whole class is able to respond, participate along with me when I'm trying to teach them. Value the fact that I mean well for them. You may be having very good intentions, but if that is not transacted and the child is not able to feel that you have value, the child is already organized that this teacher always says that I'm not okay. This teacher always reprimands me. So when the child has already organized that thought, the receiving part of the content is completely zero. So this is how the affective domain plays a very important role in framing the character of a child, framing the culture of a school, and also helping a classroom become a better receiving classroom. You will find absolutely a very comfortable class if you have been able to achieve, it is called as relaxed alertness. The children are relaxed, but they're very alert to what you're going to teach because they know that you love them all equally and unconditionally they are there. Unconditionally, you are there to help them out. So these are the ways why this affective domain plays a very important role inside the classroom. And if once the damage is done, believe me, it takes a lot of effort and energy to bring the child back. If the child's the character is already that I'm not going to do well, and the child tries to get negative attention inside the classroom, and then it's very difficult to bring back the child to the aspect of learning. Okay, so moving on further, what is learning in the psychomotor domain? This is more to do with the geometry. It's more to do with the it is not only geometry, but I'm just trying to say that it works well in a physical education class. It works well in a dance class. It works well in Montessori classes. And how does it work? Let's just go through this. So far, the domains have covered thinking and feeling. The psychomotor domain is the final piece of Bloom's puzzle. So Bloom says that there are 3 puzzles which has to be opened inside a child's brain. That is the thinking puzzle and the feeling puzzle and the physical puzzle. If all these 3 puzzles are, solved together, then the learning is much more effective. So how does it go about? The psychomotor domain is action-based, and basically it means to change or develop in behavior or skills. So it is not only the skills, even in behavior. If you want to help a child change the behavior, this is one aspect of doing it. I am sure we all remember that how many times our teacher used to make us write when a spelling goes wrong. Even that, that writing part, not the writing 5 times part. When you keep on writing also, there's lots of mastery which happens when it comes to spelling. Writing of multiplication table is also one aspect of it. Okay, so moving on further. So friends, you can see the different levels of the psychomotor domains of Bloom's taxonomy. When it comes to drawing, suppose it's a circle, it is very important that the first time the child learns to draw a circle, it is taught properly. The Montessori classes, when the child is taught how to write A, B, C, D, we normally feel it's okay, the child writes A, B, C, D, pura likhta, अच्छे से लिखता हो जाता है. But how did the child write? Did the child write from top to bottom? Did it go, or did it write the ulta way? 8 looks like 8, but how did the child write it? So the child imitates exactly what the teacher did and tries to repeat it again and again. That particular time when the child is imitating you, has the child imitated it the proper way, is very, very important. Then once the child has tried to copy you, maybe it did not come properly the first time. The second time is now I am going to rub the blackboard, write ABCD ones on your own. Then the child tries to remember how the movement went, and the child tries to manipulate or build that on memory and tries to implement and see whether the child is able to learn to write ABCD properly, drawing a circle properly, drawing a 60-degree angle properly. So it all depends upon the first step. What did you do so that the child is able to manipulate you well? It doesn't mean that there will be no kids who do not become better than us. There would be many examples where the children will go an extra inch from what we had actually done. But then overall, basically, this is what are the 5 steps. Then goes to the precision of it. Now that the child is able to reproduce, the precision part also should take part in Montessori class itself, where the teacher says that your A is okay, your B is also good, but R, yahan thoda sa change karega, bacha, you will do really well. That's how you perfect the handwriting, or you perfect the neatness, you perfect how to erase so that the notebook looks neat. You try to perfect drawing a square properly. You try to perfect drawing a circle. You try to perfect coloring inside a square. All these small activities which the child does in primary classes is very, very important, because that is what is going to articulate a child into getting confidence about neat handwriting. Because believe me, friends, we do say that handwriting is okay because now it's going to be more of a technology kind of a world. So typing karne se ho jata hai, but believe me, when a child writes neatly, it knows that it is writing neatly. It gets a lot of confidence when this child is able to see the work. And if a child is not writing neatly, it knows it is not writing neatly, but it doesn't know how to now go about it, because it's already class 3 and the child has to write a lot. So all these steps are very, very important. It doesn't mean that any class you cannot correct the child. We can do it, but the most important thing is the first time that you are making the child imitate any aspect, that particular time, and the manipulation step is very, very important. If these 2 steps are catered properly, you can ask the child to perfect itself. Then comes the articulation. And finally, if the child's articulation level has also been mastered well, the child is superb in creating anything. So how does it go? Imitation, manipulation, precision, articulation, and naturalization. Even poem writing comes under this. Now you've read a poem out in the class. You have given around 10 examples of poems on the notice board. You put different poems and you say that, okay, children, all of you will look at these 5 poems or 6 poems and then come back and write your own poem. Yes, that is the creative level of the cognitive domain, but it is also imitation, because the child is able to imitate those patterns which are followed in poem writing, and then manipulate it, become more precise. Some of them really get into the articulation of it, but most of them get the hang of what poem writing is all about. So it is not only about the cognitive domain, the psychomotor domain, the more and more the body and the hands and the legs is involved, the learning becomes more and more better. So psychomotor domain is important. Again, one more example of psychomotor domain I would say is when the child runs, batting, badminton, any kind of sport which happens, the child watches the physical education teacher. Okay, sir is taking it from the left hand. So you'll find all the class, everybody following using the left hand. So imitating and then trying to manipulate, how do I do it so that I look like it. That's what children do when they practice the playing cricket. Why is it you find so many children playing cricket in the field than hockey or football? Because the exposure of cricket is more than football and hockey. So you'll find children batting like Sachin, batting like Virat Kohli, because they have a lot of examples which they are able to imitate and then manipulate themselves, precise them in that action, and then articulate and naturalize. So these are the 5 steps of psychomotor domains. We can use it in different ways. I've tried to put all those examples so that when we walk into the classroom the next day, we are able to see how exactly we can use all the 3 domains inside the classroom. Yes, moving on further. So how to apply Bloom's taxonomy in your classrooms? Use the action verbs to inform your learning intentions. Can we go to the previous slide, please? Yeah. So friends, you can see that when you see those levels, there is a behavior which is mentioned there. So that is the behavior which is expected in that level. But what are the verbs you are going to use? These are the intentions. So today I'm going to help the child draw a perfect circle. So how do we do it? You first step is imitate what I'm doing on the blackboard. That becomes the intention of the teacher. So moving on further. So use the action verbs which is mentioned in the images to inform your learning intentions. Use Bloom style questions to prompt deeper thinking. You can use those words, remember, understand, manipulate, imitate, precise. You can use this Bloom style questions to prompt deeper thinking. And of course, use Bloom's taxonomy to differentiate your lessons. Sorry. So these are the different steps of using Bloom's taxonomy. Moving on further. It's too small, so let me read it for all of you. Bloom's 3 domains reminds us that learning isn't a detached intellectual process, but a sum of what we are understanding, feeling, and actively practicing. All these 3 things together helps the child master a concept. Think about which of your current learners are struggling emotionally. Maybe some child is struggling emotionally with you, connecting with you, or at home, or with the textbook, and are not able to actively receive your teaching. They can only passively receive what you're teaching. So that could be the problem. Who could do with some critical thought-provoking questions to encourage enthusiasm for learning? So what could you do to help them have that enthusiasm? Which questions as a teacher could you promote to develop the child cognitively, so that the learners who are struggling can become better in approaching towards you? And I'm sure you all have the names and faces in your mind when you think about all these questions in your mind. Perhaps Bloom's taxonomy can provide you with fresh energy and inspiration you need to go back to the classroom and remember that there is a science behind teaching inside a classroom. There is a difference between a tuition teacher and a classroom teacher, because the tuition teacher just helps a child to memorize, practice, that's all. But a class teacher or a subject teacher helps a child to develop itself into a wholesome individual, where you are able to cater to the child through the thinking skills, the affective skills, and also the psychomotor skills. So moving on further. So this is just a snapshot of what all we did. What do I want my students to learn? How can I express my goals to them and make these goals clear to my students? If you want to do this, how do we do it? How do we do it? We have to use all those verbs which are mentioned in the Bloom's taxonomy images. And of course, you get this on the net, you can get it. And what do you mean by learning outcomes? Whatever you want the child to learn, the child must be able to attain it. Whichever levels of learning you want them, the child should be able to attain it. And how do you know that the learning outcome is achieved? If the child, the whole class is able to demonstrate that skill, then you know that your teaching has been effective. So it's not about the child anymore. It's a child-centric classroom we are talking about. We are talking about an outcome-based education. We are talking about a competency-based education, which means that we need to now be more conscious of the fact that it is not the child being able to define or solve the match the following or fill in the blanks. The child must be able to move to the higher levels of questions through your teaching. So how do we see that the child is able to demonstrate that higher order thinking in them through your teaching? So for that, Bloom's taxonomy plays a very vital role. Next slide, please. So putting Bloom into action, again, as I said, all these verbs which are put, you have to use them in such a way that your outcome is SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and then time-based. Next, please. So thank you, all of you. Before concluding and moving on to the attendance, there was a video which I would like to share with you so that all of us can watch it, which is a complete summary of what we learned or discussed today. So can you, sir, please? A small video for us to just get a snapshot of whatever we discussed today. In the meantime, it would be nice if you can remember whatever we learned today, at least 6 words if you can put on in the chat column till the video is on. What exactly did we learn today? Any 6 words which you remember for the day, which you can take away from the day. Yes, please. The audio is not there, sir. Yeah, it came. So the audio is not there. Thank you, Keshvi. some problem with the audio, I think. So the three-way division exists purely. Thank you, sir. Maybe you can send the link of the this video to the
We
participants.
already sent. Acha, video link. Okay. Requesting participants to ask their doubts for a few minutes. 1, 2 minutes.
Participants can unmute themselves.
So this, whenever there are no questions, it means two things. One, it was, tackled the right way, so they have understood everything, or maybe it didn't reach. So it would be nice if you can ask me questions, because I'll feel encouraged.
Okay, I think they don't have questions now.
Yeah. Maybe your
Thank you very much.
feedback in the chat would help me to know whether the session was well received, or is it do you need something else beyond it? This is not a 1 hour session. This needs a complete 1 day session where we can practice things also. Today we have just gone to the remembering part of Bloom's taxonomy, where we understand, where we have actually known, okay, these are the terms and these are the domains which are there in Bloom's taxonomy. If we have to go to the apply part of it, we need to practice it again and again. So that's how we can master it.
Yes. Thank you very much, ma'am. It was a very nice session from your part. It's been quite learning, encouraging for all the teachers. Most of this they must be using, I hope, and it would have refreshed them to use it in the new perspective. It's been very nice. Thank you once again on behalf of Aryabhat Sahodaya School Complex. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. We can now leave. The attendance link is there. The video link also is shared.
Hello.
Yes. Yes, please speak up. Okay.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Yeah, it's Mahua Mukherjee from BPS Gaya.
Okay.
Sir, I have been attending. It was wonderful session, sir. I learned a lot of things. Sir, be kind enough to tell me how to my attendance, because I am a new joining.
Sorry, you're not audible. You want to make your attendance. The attendance link is already there.
But sir, I am a new joinee in this school, so I don't have the basic knowledge of, how do I do? I've been taking search, looking for help from this door to that door. Okay. So, like the webinars which we...
Ma'am, click more. Ma'am, click the more. There's a 3 dots there. Click there. You will find the chat. Click on it. You will see the link.
Okay,
And
okay,
click on the link, then it will take you to the Google form. Okay.
okay, ma'am. Okay, I'll do this.
Please send the link. Please send the link. Please send the link, ma'am.
Chat box. You see the chat box.
Please send
In the
once.
chat box, the link is already there.
It's there. Once again, send. Maybe it has gone up. You can send to resend it.
But ma'am, the link has been already sent. I'm resending in the chat
Yes,
box. Please check
It's
your chat.
already shared.
Ma'am, once
Excuse me,
again, you can
Just-
only fill the
just
form
go
once
to
only.
more.
So carefully do it, ma'am.
Just go to more and chat option.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes,
Yes.
please.
सर सीबीएसई मेल जो आया है ना इसमें गूगल फॉर्म है सर लिंक जो आपने भेजा उसमें सीबीएसई मेल पूछ रहा है सर शिक्षा
You asked your TNC, you asked your principal, they will tell you your mail ID.
Sir, your school number, school code
यस मैम
@cbseshiksha.in. Your school number, school code whatever it is @cbseshiksha.in.
@CBSE
cbseshiksha.in. Whatever the school code XYZ, 5-digit number @cbseshiksha.in.
तो एफिलिएशन नंबर और
5 school code, ma'am, 5-digit. Suppose ours says 66875, and you can have your schools. You can ask your STNC or your schools. I think you might be knowing that what is the school code.
School code.
Anything else?
Attendance link.
Attendance link already. You go to the chat box. That is, click on more. You will find the chat. Click on chat. You will find the link.
मैम वो एक्सेप्टेड नहीं हो रहा है मैम एक्सेप्ट नहीं कर रहा
Yeah, but if you are registered, then it can't be.
And if you are not accept the form, if the form is not accepting, please check. You must be missing something. That's why the form is not accepting your form.
Hello, ma'am. I have a question, please.
Yes.
How do I consider the number of CBSE school code, 5-digit number allotted by CBSE? What can I do still?
How can you fill it?
Yes, ma'am.
Your school, your STNC might be knowing that. You can ask your school that what is the school code.
School code और affiliation number के बीच में कुछ लिखना है या फिर वो एक साथ ही लिखना है स्पेस के बिना?
Ma'am, school code is 5-digit number. Affiliation number is different, 6-digit.
Yes, ma'am. एक कॉलम में CBSE स्कूल कोड के साथ एफिलिएशन नंबर लिखना है तो दोनों अलग अलग
No, अलग-अलग. That is different. Only you write school code of the 5-digit number.
Ma'am, Radhika, should I share the link?
Difficult. It is this time. No, it is difficult to get the school code now.
Okay, you write any 6-digit number.
No, I just put it there 000, but it is not functioning there. If to put the school code, you should mention inform now before itself. Now it's very difficult for us.
Yes, if I'm
Why the form is not accepting?
Informed by your STNC. This is not me that we have to write. Your STNC will tell
They
you.
are not the form is not accepting there. It is only red color is coming there.
So you have
I
to write
tried there 5-digit code, but it is not working there.
You have to
Sir,
write
in the
your
beginning,
school
that is
code.
why I said, please rename yourself with school code. Beginning.
But it is not possible now, madam. How it is possible there? You should inform now before itself. There, school affiliation number we know, but school code it is difficult to get.
You see in the
Name of
message
the
that
school
we have
memory
sent, it has already been informed.
Sir, whoever
You
is
see the
speaking,
entire
please
message
listen.
in the Google form
Those
as
who are
well.
new, it is very difficult for us now, sir.
It has already been informed much earlier. Even today it was informed.
You just see the link
You go
you
through
are
the
asked,
message.
and in the beginning said school code and affiliation number. No, both are.
हेलो excuse me ma'am हेलो
Yes, yes. बोलिए.
Yeah, ma'am.
Please speak up. बोलिए.
What I write in CBSE Shiksha email.
स्कूल will tell you.
Mail is that
आपके स्कूल
school
वाले
code.
बताएंगे कि आपका सीबीएसई शिक्षा आईडी क्या है. आपका स्कूल कोड होता है जो 6 से शुरू होता है और 5 डिजिट का होता है. और वो 5 डिजिट रखने के बाद फिर @ लिखते हैं, फिर लिखते हैं CBSE शिक्षा.in. वो आपका स्कूल का सीबीएसई शिक्षा मेल आईडी है.
Okay.
अगर आपको स्कूल का स्कूल नंबर पता है तो स्कूल का सीबीएसई शिक्षा आईडी आप खुद से बना सकते हैं.
सीबीएसई एप्लीकेशन नंबर 33 कुछ नहीं रहा. देखिए ना कौन फियर होता है डायरी में. एप्लीकेशन नंबर कुछ 33 करके रहे ना लिखकर बोर्ड पर देखिए.
सर एप्लीकेशन नंबर क्या है?
Hello. Now our office coordinator will tell you through the video how to write, how to fill this attendance link form. Mr. Abhay, please start.
Yes, sir. I'm just sharing this
Sir,
screen.
what is the application number?
Just give me a minute, sir.
Application number आपको ना पता है.
Now please check on the screen. It is mentioned over there. You will have to fill all the details over there. The email ID represents that you have to fill your own email ID. The second one is your school name. Just fill your school name. And the third one is CBSE school code. That will start with the CBSE school code start with 6. It's a 5-digit number. The school code is 5-digit number, whereas the application code is 6-digit number. Here will fit your CBSE school code.
ऊपर नहीं बड़का लिखल छै ओली में से बाहर. ये से बुझाई छै बाहर से 33 की छै.
आप अपने स्कूल का नंबर दीजिए भाई, जो लोग अपने अपने स्कूल में है. आपका स्कूल का होगा, एप्लीकेशन नंबर भी होगा.
यहाँ ईमेल आईडी डालिएगा, स्कूल का नाम डालिएगा, उसके नीचे में आपका. यस मैम.
Abhay, please write your school code and make them understand.
Sure ma'am.
Okay.
Right.
Your idea.
After mentioning mine.
Oh.
The next one is the school code, school name.
Please resend the attendance link, sir.
Sure, ma'am. Just sending it. Here I will mention my school name. Here I will mention my school code. The school code always start with 6. Suppose I am mentioning 65777. This is my school code, and this one will be like 65777 @CBSE Shiksha.in.
Sir, आपने 4 digit only. Make it 5 digit. 777.
777 The affiliation number. I will put my affiliation number, which is starting from 330, and the rest 3 digits. I will put it over here. It's just, I will suppose my affiliation code is the example I'm giving is 330123. I will put my affiliation number over here. After that, I have to select from these categories. I will mention my name, and I will move to next page. If I'm not missing, that means I need to input my school name. If I'm mentioning my school name, it will go to the next page where, as sir has told, there is a questions part. You have to answer the questions, and later on you have to submit over here. That's it. You can go back also if any correction you need to make. You can go back and make all the required corrections over here.
Now, Mr. Abhay, I hope they have understood. Now we can leave it.
Sure, sir.
Okay, thank you.
आते हैं. What do you suggest we do? I have accepted that. I always keep saying maybe मैंने कुछ किया होगा.